Hello, this is your friendly neighborhood wizard, and I'm going to go through the animatic that I made that you guys have been screaming about, which, thanks for that, I appreciate it. It was a lot of work, it was the first one that I ever made, so some of you were like, the symbolism, which is fair because I, in fact, thought about this very thoroughly as I was making it. And there is a lot of symbolism in this, specifically pertaining to the Goldie Pond arc. And so I kind of thought we would go through and watch it together and, I'll explain my thought processes for this. So the first opening sequence with the Field of the Flowers, which is a recurring motif, if you'll notice, was that, I mean, it's pretty, but also the Vita flowers being the symbol of death, and the reason why they actually blow off of this single stem here is because spoilers guys, with Lucas not being dead and with Norman being revealed to not be dead in this arc, and the Vita flowers representing death, the flowers petals blowing off of the stem is actually kind of foreshadowing Lucas and Norman being alive instead. And then we have our title card and the petal that blows to the screen. And then it's actually inside the barrel of a gun, which I thought was also really cool because Emma and Ray have this thing ongoing with Hugo where, about killing, and, Hugo wants to kill them. Ray's like, I'll kill Hugo if he touches Emma type thing. And so the whole thing with the gun is that Emma actually never really killed anybody, but the gun that she does use, and the gun which in fact doesn't shoot real bullets, is the one that winds up killing Lewis in the end. So we have the shot of her, and there's a giant flash, and the smoke is mostly for the transition, but the flash itself is because, in fact, she fires a flash bomb. And then we get this screen with the balloon and the smoke blowing across it, which I had originally animated, but it looked bad, so I cut the animation. And it pans down to the forest, and Hugo standing amidst the sea of corpses of all his dead friends. And this is the opposite of what I like to call the anime fist clench, which is represents a character's determination and drive. And Hugo's his fists are unclenching, which kind of symbolizes his loss of willpower. He's ready to die. He's ready to give up. And so his fist goes from being clenched to open. And then he actually gets a little bit bigger here, if you notice, and a little messier in this screen right here with where the teacup appears in his hand. And then we have the teacup, which most of you guys understand the symbolism behind the teacup and the cracks in it representing Hugo's sanity and his grip. Well, not just his grip on reality, but his mental breakdowns. And so the cup is breaking because Hugo is breaking. And that's why the liquid that comes out of it is because it can't be held anymore. And then it lands in the pond, which, ta-da, that's an owl, da-na-na-na-na, and it turns into Norman. Initially, I had wanted to have Norman turn into the owl because it's Norman that takes on Minerva's personality and his persona in the later arcs. But I actually decided to reverse it and have the owl turn into Norman because he is in fact a reflection, so it's sort of the opposite of what actually happens, but also it's easier to animate that way. We're just gonna pretend that's a thing. And then we have the windmill turning into the table. And for those of you who don't know about my thing with Lucas and the windmill, anytime there's a windmill, it's a reference to Lucas. And so there is the shot with the windmill, and behind the kids is kind of foreshadowing of him watching over them. But also, when we zoom in on the windmill and it turns into the demon table, this is kind of showing what Lucas thinks happened to... what Hugo thinks happened to Lucas, which is that he was eaten. But he actually wasn't eaten. He was in the windmill. So that's why the windmill transitions into the table specifically, is because I really like that motif, that like idea of Lucas being alive, but that this being what Hugo thinks happened to him. Obviously, we have to have Lewis. Plinky, plinky, plinks. And then it turns white. And it turns white because how do they kill Lewis? It's with the flash bomb. We all know that. So that's why it turns white. But it also turns white to transition into this shot of all the scribbling on the walls. And the one time we get to see part of Hugo's face. Because this is like all of the pressure and all of the time that he's been alone, and it's building up over time. And then it transitions from him to the kids, because the kids are actually what save him from that. And I think that is beautiful. Oliver! And then we have Emma and Ray reaching, and they are reaching for the camera. They're reaching for the other kids, but they're also reaching for Isabella. And Isabella is holding one of these Vita flowers because at this point, we don't know what happened to her. She's not the villain that we thought she was, because once the children escape, she's glad for it. And she's holding these death flowers because that kind of symbolizes the idea that she might have been killed, which is later revealed that she's not. But I like the ambiguity, which is why also one of the petals falls off and is torn away by the wind, which is the same wind that is by this right panel of Isabella. And she's wearing white because that is what the children wear, and that is what she is inside. She's still a child that's been forced into this role. And she, if you will notice, her hand does the anime fist clench because Isabella is not quite as much of a villain as we initially thought she was. And we follow the petal past our boy Peter Rattray, who's kind of a little jerk. Anyway, Peter Rattray is beside a demon. And if you'll notice, he's in the same position that Isabella is, and the demon is in the same position as the other Isabella, which is the internalization of Isabella, and that is because what is Rattray inside? A demon. And we follow the flower petal past Phil, and this is actually kind of ominous, because Phil is still under the threat of the Vita flower, and that is why the petal blows past him, but he is also adorable, and I plan on putting him in like every single opening and ending because he's Phil, and we love Phil, okay? And then the petal blows past Lewis, because Lewis is our main villain of this arc and has killed many, many, many children and wants to kill one more, that child being the girl in front of him, Emma. To top off at the end, we have Hugo back to back with Emma, but he's kind of silhouetted in this sort of face-off last showdown with Lewis. And then the screen cracks at the end. Why does the screen crack at the end? Because they shoot Lewis in the mask, and his mask cracks and falls off. And that is why Hugo shows up right before the screen cracks. And that is the symbolism behind this animatic. I'm so glad that you guys really enjoyed this. I'm so salty about season 2. We'll forever be salty. You guys are still salty. So anyways, thank you for liking and sharing and appreciating my work, and tune in for more.